Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Saturday morning. Happy Saturday morning. It's Felicia Vaughn here, and I am excited to talk to you guys today about brave conversation. So before I start, I just want you to share this, tag people, tag friends. Let's allow people a chance to get in here so that we can have a really awesome conversation this morning. Let's see. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, April, thank you for sharing. I see you, boo. Thank you. Tag someone, let them know. Grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a waffle or something, and let's just have this brunch time conversation. And okay, I see more people coming in. Thank you guys. Let us know that you're here. And let me put my glasses on before April gets me with the squinting. Happy Saturday, Bree. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Go ahead and tag someone that you care about. Tag a friend. Tag a coworker. Hopefully this conversation will be helpful to everyone. So tag people and let them know that we're on here talking this morning. Hey, Casey, Dorothy, good morning, boo. Good morning. I'm so happy to chat with you guys. Yay. Good morning, Fancy. Oh, man, y'all are awesome. Thank you guys for hopping on at the beginning. I appreciate it. Feel free to share this live so people can tune in and chat with us. And I'm not on my own today. I have a special friend who's going to be joining me in just a few seconds. So go ahead and let us know where you're from, how your morning's been doing, what your plans are for the day, for the weekend. We want this to be an open dialogue. So feel free to just chime in there. Thank you for sharing, Dorothy. Oh gosh, if you guys are in Sanford, Florida, or if you're in Orlando, Florida, really, there is an organization called Harvest Time International, and just an amazing organization to help people in need. And the daughters of the founder, Mr. Murphy, has a few amazing daughters, but two of them that I get to interact with on a day-to-day basis, and that's Dorothy and Carmen. And they have opened a thrift store right in Sanford, Florida, where people who, are can get really good, amazing things for their home, their life. I'm talking about from medicine to clothes to furniture at a discounted price, and all the proceeds go towards the organization to further the causes. So if you don't know about that, I'm going to challenge you to stop by or even donate some things. But it's one of my favorite places here in the city that I live in. Okay, let's see. Let's see who else is on. Let's see who else is on. Tag your mom, tag your sister. Candace, woo! Candace, good to see you, Candace. Thank you for hopping on this morning. I'm excited for you. And Candace is a local entrepreneur. She is an event planner. And she just had a pop-up wedding that was so cute. So Candace, shout out to you. I love to see all that you're doing and helping people make moments so special. So, all right, are you guys excited? I don't even want to wait any longer because I feel like this conversation is going to be getting so good, and I want us to have every minute to just eat it up together. So first of all, my name is Felicia Siobhan, known as Felicia Vaughn. I'm the owner of Felicia Writes, and I am an actor, a director, an author, and a whatever else you can throw in there. But what I do with my company and with my content is to help people to rewrite internal narratives, accept God's truth about themselves, and to show up for themselves in their daily lives and for their God-given purpose. And so one of the ways that I get to do this is through having wholehearted conversations, is what I call them. And that's an opportunity for people to come together. We don't have to look the same. We don't have to have the same experience, but we come together at the same table and we talk about it. And most of all, we listen with our whole hearts. And I think that change can happen that way. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Okay. That's what we're going to be doing today. Today, I wanted to talk about having conversations. And it's interesting because you would think that it's an easy thing to do, but I found that as I got older and I matured, and the more important the conversation was, the harder it was to have, and the more uncomfortable it made me. And so, with everything that's happening in our world right now, I know that we're all in a place where we are having or need to have uncomfortable conversations. And so, the purpose of today is to bring those conversations to light, why we should be having them, the impact of those conversations, and provide the support that you need, you know? So without any further ado, are you guys excited? I'm so excited for my friend who is joining me to talk about this. Y'all, she is cute. Let me just tell you in advance, okay? She's looking real cute right now. Her name is Elizabeth Bellinger. Woo! And let me tell you about this girl. So I met her through fellowshipping with both of our churches are part of an organization that we get to fellowship with each other in different occasions. However, I think I probably saw her first on social media. She is a poet, and I think I first came across her poetry. Literally started a movement with Atoned, which was one of her popular poems. And but not only that, she's in love with Jesus and is not afraid to help people by being real and honest as a preacher. She's a writer. She's a podcast host. Her and her three other sisters have gotten together and started the Sisters Collective podcast, which is, man, talk about having brave conversations. They have that on that podcast. And she's also an educator and owner of Reach Educational Consulting. And she also is an advocate and a voice in our generation that I want to help amplify and share. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you my friend, Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. How is everyone? How are you, friend?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I'm so excited to see your face. Your hair is just so beautiful.
Girl,
I love your earrings.
thank you.
You look so
Thank
nice.
you. Thank you. Likewise, friend. You cute. You cute.
Thank
It's
you.
good to be
Thank you.
here.
It is. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. I asked her a couple days ago if she would hop on and just have this conversation with me, and she said yes. And I'm glad that you said yes. And not only that, but recently you end up having an important conversation at your church.
Yes.
Which is, you guys can actually go back and watch it. Truth Nation, they streamed it live. But man, what a time that we're in right now.
What a time we're in. First of all, thank you for the invitation. We are in precarious times, but it's precisely in times like this where we are expected to step up, where the people of God, especially the voices that He's ordained, are expected to own their realm of influence and step into places that sometimes can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Acts of resistance in and of themselves are going to make somebody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But being a spokesman for acts of resistance can also be uncomfortable. But we have to own the spaces that God has given us. And that conversation at my church, it was about race, religion, and reality.
I love that title.
And we had to talk about some really hard conversations that both the church needed to have, but that the church needed to voice to people who should have the same mind because we're of the same body, but have for some reason, not found it sensible to treat people with the same kind of respect that God ordained us to, that God calls us to. So we had to have some hard conversations as a church body, and making some declarations and taking a stand on the thing called race. Like, it's the biggest elephant in the room that we get to overlook. And we've overlooked it and overlooked it and overlooked it. But the elephant has been in the room forever. right? And we're just at a point now that we're not overlooking the elephant in the room. We're just going to call it an elephant, and we're going to talk about what's going on. And that's the time we're in, where it's like a perfect storm, a culmination of pandemic, and people are just over it. They're over the racist tactic. They're over the systemic racism. They're over the institutionalized racism. They're over all of it. And that perfect storm of things is why everything feels so amplified right now. This is not a new battle. This is not a new fight. What it is it feels new because we're in the middle of two storms, both pandemic and racial unrest. And it has to come to an end, because we're not going to live another 400 years. We're not going to have another generation of people having to fight a fight that we have a responsibility to bring it into.
Absolutely.
So that's where we are.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I've settled in my heart that I'm in it for the long haul. To me, it's not just about a post. It's not just about this one event, right? I think there's so much to undo. It's it's layered on so many levels, and I'm in it for the long haul. And that's why I wanted to have you on and have us talk about how we can sustain ourselves. I think preservation, sustainability is important when we think about undoing systematic oppression, racism, these biases, undoing all of this, because we're going to have to keep going. It's not going to be one easy fix. And what we can't do, those who are wanting to make a change, is that we have to not get tired. We have to find ways to restore, refresh, and keep going. So and I found myself getting very tired this past week. These past couple of weeks, I've had conversations where literally the next day I was like, if I can be silent all day, that would be good, because it just took so much out of me. It's hard to talk about your position and how you had to show up in the world because of the color of your skin, those experiences, and not be vulnerable, and not be honest, and not bring your heart to it. And so I want to check in with some of you guys who are on here.
I see you. Hey, good. I see y'all. Hey.
Algie's on here. Algie, did you just have a baby? Algie,
I know. I'm like, sweet Fred, what you doing on
here? He just brought a baby into this world. My former coworker, Heather, is on here. Heather, thank you so much for hopping on. I hope you can chime in with us, because we want this to be an open dialogue. We got together and we have some thoughts that we want to share and some questions that we want to ask our audience, but this is a platform for you. Part of our passion was to create a safe place for us to dialogue, for us to listen, and for you to be heard. And we want to hear what you guys are thinking, what you have to say, and maybe even questions that you might have. Let's see. Francesca's giving us some queens. Shout out.
Back at you, sweetie. Back at you.
Back at you, Fancy. Josephine says, yes, it does. It's so heartbreaking. Yeah, there's a lot of heartbreak happening right now. And I think, taking myself out of it, I believe that God is allowing people who may not have had the capacity to have that empathy naturally, for their hearts to be broken with the things that breaks his heart. But all of that is uncomfortable. And if we don't lean into that discomfort, if we don't find ways to navigate that, we will just retreat and try to get back to our comfort zones. So we're not doing that. Not doing that.
And we talked about it on the podcast once, how, like, at the beginning of this pandemic, we were still in March, maybe April, and we were like, how people were starting to say, like, when the outside opens back up, how much better it'll be, and how we could just get back to a norm. And I all along knew there is no norm to go back to. Like, this is a complete undoing of what we used to do and how we used to do things. Everything about this place that we're in is uncharacteristic. The way we do church is different. The way we're doing school is different. The way we're communicating is different. Everything about where we are is so unnaturally new, and it's for the purposes of us not getting established in something, trying to establish something new. You're going to have to flow with this. You're going to literally have to learn to be uncomfortable consistently. But the good thing about being uncomfortable is that you have to trust the only one that has answers. So learning this new uncomfortable space has been a challenge, but it's where we are.
Yeah.
And we just can't
Absolutely.
get weary in all of the doing well. We just have to
Yeah.
not get weary in all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's so true. And that's why we wanted to provide this support for those who are
Yeah.
having the conversations, and for those who don't know where to start. We
Yeah.
have some information that we want to communicate as well. This is great, great, great stuff. Casey, friend of
I
mine,
see that.
she says, as a songwriter, I want to write about what's going on, but as a white person, I feel like I don't have a place. Do you all have some advice on what my first step should be? Yes,
Well,
we do have tons of advice. I want to come
yeah.
back to that at the end, because
Thank
I
you.
I think this is important, Casey, and I'm so glad. Thank you for your bravery, for
Yes.
and your heart. And as artists, art reflects life, and I think that we do have a responsibility as artists to portray that, and art can heal, and I believe that. So, but your experience is unique to what you're seeing, but it doesn't mean that it's not valuable and that you can't contribute.
Exactly.
And so I have some ideas for you, but just stick with us, and we're gonna dive into
Hang
that.
in there, Casey.
Yes, yes, yes. Josephine says, "Amen. Without our trust in the Lord, we would live in fear." That's right.
We sure would.
That's right. I don't believe. Well, God didn't give us a spirit of fear.
He
So for
didn't.
those of you who maybe are new to the Bible or Christian principles, one of the principles that we stand on is what God is, and that what He gave us, and He didn't give us fear, but it exists in our realm and in our humanity, and so. That's how interesting it is navigating this conversation as a Christian, as a person who's Black, because it's like, your human body nature, your humanity wants to do certain things, but you also have to consider how to represent Christ in that way, and also just
Right.
how to embrace what He's given you. So this is good. Okay, so what we wanted to talk about first, and if you guys have any questions, please, don't feel bad about putting them in the chat, because we will get to all
We
of them.
will.
And while I am here, please remember to share, tag someone in this conversation, and I really believe it's going to be a blessing for a lot of us. And I'm going to actually put actually your information in here so that
Oh,
people
thank you.
connect with you. Yeah. So that people can connect with you, because I think that you're an amazing voice, and I want people to be able to have you as a resource. And I know even me, I was able to go to your Instagram and click on links that you had, curated, and take action for Breonna Taylor. So I want to thank you for your skills of organizing.
It was important because there's so many people speaking, and that was part of the caption that we had. There are so many voices are rising, and don't think that they're out of order. It's necessary for people to be speaking right now.
Yeah.
It's necessary for us to be bringing voice to the things that people are feeling, because there are some people that are sensing and feeling, and they don't have voice. They don't know what to say. So it's important that people that genuinely and authentically understand the times bring language to what it is that's going on. So it's so much going on. I had to find a way to compile that information.
Yeah.
And the idea came to me, just snap it in your link tree. And
Yeah.
just so happens the link tree has partnered with Black Lives Matter movement, and they put an extra banner up. So if you go to my link tree, there's a banner that comes up where they have extra information posted. I mean, amazing information in the banner inside of my link tree. So not only can you get petitions and access to petitions and access to information, even some anti-racism information I have in the link tree that I posted, tons of stuff that's there, and I will keep updating it as I get links. But Linktree has also partnered with Black Lives Matter movement, and they have extra information connected to our Linktree. So it's tons of information, and I know that most people just don't have the time. They might not have the time or the know-how to be scouring the internet for information, but we're in a position, I'm in a place now that I had time, I took time, and I compiled it so that people would have a resource bank and they wouldn't have to look all over the place. And it was just necessary, because we need to know what we're doing and how to do it, and who to be helping, and how to pitch in. So
Absolutely.
I was happy to do it.
Yes, thank you for that. And you will be able to access that information when you click on her Instagram and gain more. And of course, follow her. Her content, it's uplifting and beautiful, and you just won't be disappointed. So I want to kind of jump into what we're talking about today, as far as these tough conversations, these uncomfortable conversations. Um, you know, and in some of the conversations that I've been having, one thought that came out was the idea of, I'm not talking anymore to white people. I'm not quote unquote making it easy for them. It's their job. They can do the research. So I want to ask you guys on the live, and Elizabeth, I want to ask you, I know my thoughts about this, but I want us to talk through it. I want us to talk through this. And, if you are not Black or not a person of color, this is a safe place for you to talk as well.
Safe space.
Safe space.
Yes.
I want to know what your thoughts are. Have you heard that? Have you heard people say, it's not my responsibility? And what are your thoughts about that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I want to hear. I want to hear. So Elizabeth, do you think it is the responsibility of Black people to educate white people on racism and what they should be doing in this time?
It's twofold. It really depends on the heart of the person that is asking for the help. Do they really want help? Are they asking for partnership, or are they asking for pacification? You have to decipher.
Yeah.
Because if they're asking for genuine, direct me in the, just
That's
show me
good,
the
Elizabeth.
direction.
You need to say that. You need to say that again. You need to say that again, because there is a difference between partnership and pacification.
It
Say
is.
that again. That is really good.
It is. Because if you're asking me to partner with you to help you come to an understanding, I have no problem with that. What that looks like is, help me to understand how this affects Black people. Help me understand how racism affects Black people. Because it's not their experience, we can't expect them to necessarily understand it wholeheartedly. Now, there's a certain human aspect, that there's a certain empathy that every human being ought to have one for another. You don't have to be Black to understand that what happened to him with the knee on his neck for 6 minutes. You don't have to be Black, you don't have to be male, you don't have to be any of that to understand that that was brutal. So I'm not explaining that to you, because that's a part of humanity that you ought to have. I'm not explaining that to you. I'm not unearthing that. But if you were trying to understand the plight of Black people, systemic racism, how that has affected us, I have no problem with directing you to resources that can help you with that. So I know a lot of times we'll say, oh, just go look it up. They don't know what to look up. And so we have to have the kind of heart that says, is this person asking for help? Are they asking for, are they asking me to be help or be a crutch? I won't be anybody's crutch, but I will help you, right? I will assist you. So you have to decide, is this person asking me for partnership in their path of understanding, or are they asking me to just pacify their ignorance? I won't pacify you. So pacification looks like asking questions that don't need to be asked, like, why are you rioting? Why such the uprising? When the question should be, why are they killing them? Why
Right.
so many Black lives? Why so many dead bodies?
Yeah.
So those kinds of questions, you're not asking for my help. You want me to pacify you, and I simply won't be involved in that. So you have to be sensitive to, what are they asking? Where is it coming from? If you can get a sense of their heart. I've had to answer some questions this week, and I had to genuinely ask. They don't feel like they're coming from a negative space. Let me insert. Let me help. And it was helpful.
What questions did you have to answer this week?
Let me see if I can find the post, because it wasn't that they had said anything. One of my friends, and I'm literally on Facebook. I'm going to try to find the actual post that I had some information on, that I said something on. One of my friends, dear lady, Hispanic lady, she had a post, and she was saying, to my Black family friends, please forgive me. What it is some of her posts that one of her posts, she had said something asking, why so much uprising, why so many
Yeah.
people. I'm not for the post, they shouldn't be burning things down. And I
Yeah.
tried to let her know where resistance is the voice of people that haven't been heard. And so
Yeah.
I told her, brace yourself, because as much as you, the uprising you sense right now, you're going to keep, it's not going anywhere until
Yeah.
things change. We're not going to stop. I didn't
Right.
advocate for the looting or anything like that,
Yeah.
but I did tell her that she may as well brace herself, because it's not going anywhere until change comes.
Right.
She heard me, because she knows my heart. She heard what I said and came back the next day and actually had to say, you know what? I don't have it. I'm not asking any more questions about that, because I understand why this is happening now. And she
Mhm.
started to ask her Black friends,
Mhm.
I need you to help. She first said, forgive me. That
Mm,
was important. She
mm.
said, forgive me, though I do not agree with looting and destruction of property. I ask the Lord to help me to understand why my Black brothers and sisters are what they're feeling right now. So when you come to me with that kind of
That is
heart,
so powerful.
I have no choice
Yeah.
but to be open to help you, because you have just demonstrated to me that you don't have to understand it. You now have human empathy, and
Yeah.
that is the beginning of change.
Yeah.
Because people are asking for a revival, you're not getting a revival until there's repentance. And you can't repent for something that you haven't even owned up to. You
Yeah.
haven't even apologized. You haven't even come clean.
Yeah.
She is Hispanic. She's not even of the minority, but she still has a lot of privilege. And she was
Mhm.
able to own that, because of some of her privilege, it allowed her to be dismissive of some of the acts of resistance that Black people
Yeah.
are participating in. She came
Mhm.
and repented. So in her post, she said, she started asking, my she was asking people of her nationality, how can they help? And she was asking us to give her some tools. Give Will you help us? Just give me, show me, what can we do? And I began to post, on the post, I started giving her some ideas of things she could do, certain documentaries that she could watch. I
Yeah.
also told her to read literature on anti-Black tactics of this country. Now, I didn't
Mhm.
tell her which book to go to, but I gave her enough information that if she took that, she could get on the
To
internet,
get
she could find
started.
something.
Yeah.
It opened the dialogue, and I made it very clear that if she had questions, I will be a resource for you. I have no problem with it. I told her, donate your time, your talent, your treasure to organizations that are leading protests in the city. I also asked her, have conversations. Interesting that you brought this to me. I said, have conversations with your family and community about any subtle anti-Blackness prejudice that may reside. It is
Yeah.
important that if you are not a person of color, and sometimes even if you are, you need to talk to your family, your friends,
Yeah.
your communities, your coworkers. What anti-Black tactics have you participated in? Have you let go, just sweep by, that you've ignored? And to ignore it is to be a participant in it.
Yeah. And the
Okay.
companies.
And then
Yeah.
I asked her to decide on a way to demonstrate her allyship as an anti-racist. It is important that we understand that it
Yeah.
is one thing to be an ally. It is another thing to be anti-racist. You can be an ally, meaning you're marching with us, you're protesting with us, you're
Mhm.
at the rallies with us, but you're not against racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're against the move. You're for the movement, but
Mhm.
you have not debunked racist
Yeah.
ideologies in your heart. You're not anti-racist yet. I
I
don't want you to be
agree.
an ally if you're not anti-racist. I need you to be both.
My thing is, and you said so many really rich and profound things within that, and just from my personal experience in these past 2 weeks, I realized that the change that we need to see is going to come through human engagement and interaction. We're going to have
Yeah.
to continue to have these uncomfortable conversations. And in regards to educating white people, I don't feel like I need to educate you because there's so much information out there and I can lead you to what
Mm-hmm.
might be helpful. But thankfully, so many
Right.
people have, released blogs and documentaries and the information is out there. But what I also cannot do for you is the work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do the work within yourself, within your heart. And I think that by continuing to have those conversations and being honest, which is where we can't get tired, is how people will be able to see it. I had a friend
Mm-hmm.
tell me, they see it, but they don't see it. He said they don't see it. And I argued him down. I was like, absolutely, they see it. It's all over
You
social media.
see it.
It's all over the news. But it wasn't until I had a meeting with a a meeting in a setting where I was the only Black person there, and I heard them talk about everything that was happening and what they wanted to do externally. And I realized, wow, they see racism in the world, but they don't see it within themselves. They don't see,
They do not.
they don't see just the things that were passed down, just the areas of comfort where it's like, I'm going to make this decision because that's what we're comfortable with doing, but not seeing how it is truly based in racism and based on bias. And in that moment, I believe that God empowered me, out of love, to speak up and say, I'm hurt by this because you guys don't see me and you don't see the people in your lives that are affected by this, but you want to publicly be seen as an ally. But your policies and how we function is not anti-racist.
And so now you see the difference between being an ally and being anti-racist. They're not the same.
Yeah. But I think that we have to be able to keep our heart right so that when those opportunities come up, we can have those difficult conversations to help people see how 400 years, I don't believe, is going to change in a week or a month,
It won't.
and to be in it for the long haul, we'll still have to be able to, in love, have these conversations. And you can be in love and still be firm. You can be in love and still have boundaries. I've decided that I'm no longer having the conversation with people to explain why saying all lives matter can be hurtful.
Is offensive. I've had to have that conversation this week also.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I've had to have that conversation.
Because of what it does to me and how it breaks me down, So it's like you can still be in love and still have those boundaries. But I think that Fancy said something that was really, really, really true. She said,
trying to scroll them. I do all of it at the same time. Yeah.
She said, I don't like that sentiment. Unfortunately, there's so much misinformation out there. Non-Black people should be able to go to Black resources with the intent of understanding how non-Black people can assist in implementing changes. I think I got lost. Non-Black people should be able to go to Black resources with the intent of understanding how non-Black people can assist. Yeah, there are resources out there.
I agree.
Someone else, Brittany says,
to address what Fancy said, I agree. Us having the empathy and the ability to send them to those resources is what we should do, especially if we know they're genuinely asking for resources, not just kind of asking for some pacification. We should absolutely be armed with that information and share. It doesn't mean that I got to drop it in your box. I can tell you where to go look, what to go watch. That's what you can lead them to it, and then they take the step. That was what I'm saying on that.
Absolutely. I think that we should take every opportunity that we can to share that knowledge, to share that education, and it is on people for them to read and to care. Secondly, I can't make you care. I can't make you empathize. That's a decision and a hard decision that you make. But that's my prayer, is that you make it. And my prayer is that through engagement with me and other people, and just through the grace of God, that your heart can change, and that you can rectify your vision and how you see things, or even let go of that to embrace a new way of seeing things. But this is a great topic to navigate, because I have heard people just say white people need to go figure it out. I'm not having more conversations. I'll tell you. I'm a part of a theater group of Black women, and it's an online platform. And an owner at a theater said, hey, what can we do to help? Please let us know. And someone shared the post in the group, and she was like, hey, if you guys have anything you want to share, I will, communicate it directly to them. Some people were like, I'm not talking about it. They need to Google it. They need to go find out what they need to do. And I was like, I understand that. And you have every right to feel that way. But the change, it's like becoming the change that you want to see, I think also includes that vulnerability and that sacrifice that you have to do to communicate what it is that you need and want to see. Because
we have to remember that the activism doesn't allow you to be rude or void of care. Just because I can be angry and still not be absent of care.
That
So
is
we have
so
to remember,
good.
if they have been absent of care for us for all of this time, and then you become absent of care for them, you haven't done anything other than what they've done.
Yeah.
So you can't be what they are and expect to win them. And here's
Yeah.
the thing, remember that your activism is not to change them, it's to inform them, because they have to,
I
upon
love that.
getting the information, they may ask questions. It's because they are now informed, and they may, here's the thing, we inform them, they're intrigued by the information, they come to the place where they got the information from and said, hey, can you give me some more information? And we say, go figure it out yourself. You see how silly that sounds?
Yeah.
They came to you for the information, and then what you do,
You need
yes,
to
we
ask
can
us.
lead them
You
to the
need to
resource,
come
but
to
we
Black
can't
Youth
make them
Acting
actually use
Like
it.
People. And then
Yes,
they're like,
you're
yeah.
absolutely right, Fancy. It is not our job to make them use it. It is our job to be open enough to show them where the information is, with the hopes that they will get the information and do something about it. Okay.
Yeah.
All we do is inform. We are not the ones that change hearts. We are not the ones that make them do work. It is our job to be to have the information, to inform. We don't change minds. We don't change hearts. Our
Yeah.
job as resistors is to inform and to stand against, to speak truth to power. Our position is that we inform. We can't change your heart. But when they come to us and say, hey, I understand what you're saying here. Can you, is there somewhere I can go to get some information? Tell them, yes, go look up this document. Have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Go check out some anti-racism literature. Did I tell you which book? No, because it's so much that
Yeah.
you need to go and find some anti-racism literature and look it up. You type it into a Google, into Google, it'll give you a list of it. Go pick some and go read it.
Yeah.
Our job is to lead them, to inform them. We can't make them change. We can't make
Yeah.
anybody change.
I love what Brittany said. That's good. Be a vessel, but don't take the
Mm-hmm.
time in changing hearts. And
Precisely.
I think that we can't leave God out of this fight
No.
for justice and equality,
No way.
especially if we are Christians, because we know that God is the one who changes the hearts of people. And more than anything, and I made a vow to myself that I would not lose myself in this fight, that I
Right.
would not lose what was valuable and important to me, that I would not lose my heart and my ability to love people and my ability to be transparent and vulnerable, that I would not become so guarded that I still can't do work that God has me to do on this earth with my family, with my friends, because of these walls that I have to put up to protect myself. So
that would make all of this pointless if you come out of this with a heart in the worst character than it is right now.
yeah,
Like acts of resistance shouldn't harden you. It should awaken you. Right?
right,
It should awaken you to the truth of what is going on around us, but it should also awaken you to the truth of what is on the inside of you. There are a lot of warriors being raised up right now that have not taken part in any protests, in any acts of resistance, but God is sparking something in their heart to say, you need to wake up and there's something for you to do. People that are in arts, people that are in theater, people that are poets, people that are singers, people are writing songs they have never written, because we're tired. And some of your best work is going to come out of this resistance. Some of your best stuff is going to come out of this hard, tough place. But this is not time for you to allow these acts of resistance to shut you down and make you harden. If what we're doing, we want it to soften hearts, then how can we let it harden ours?
yeah. Absolutely. Do y'all hear what that? I just feel like that was a prophetic declaration. I'm not trying to go there. You know what I mean? And
Listen, I'm gonna go wherever you take us today, okay?
But Elizabeth, I believe that register with my spirit so much that what you said is absolutely prophetic, and I believe that God is calling us, and activism every protest is not in the street.
Nope.
Every protest is not with a picket sign. And I believe it's all hands on deck, and God is changing the hearts of people, and he's changing culture. And I'm excited about what's going to come out of this. I do.
I've been saying this all week.
Brittany says, go
ahead.
there, go there.
I knew
go
she
there,
was going to say that. Go there. She always wants to go there. That baby ain't, she stay there. You hear me?
Yes. Brittany, new songs are going to come out of this, boo.
Listen, I said what I said. Mm-hmm.
Dorothy said, so good. Kimberly said, that's revival. Oh, man. Every protest is not in the street. Harden not your heart. I love that. Fancy, I love
Let me
that.
tell you something. See, I can't play with y'all great faith people. I can't play with y'all like that. because y'all love to go there. I can play with y'all.
This is so
Something I've been
good. Harden
and you
not
see
your
me
heart.
trying to skip over you, like, nah, I'm gonna go back over here. Okay, that's fine. But
No, no,
it's
no. This is a safe place
it
to be
is.
vulnerable, and like Brittany said, to go there. I mean, there aren't a lot of places. I don't know about you, but I can't go to my job and just unpack in this way.
Mm-mm.
At my, at church, there's not the space to do that yet, and
Mm-hmm.
even in some social situations, not everybody wants to have these conversations, but this is a safe place for you to unpack and to really, walk away feeling refreshed and feeling empowered and feeling heard and seen. And I prayed and we prayed today that God would speak to
Yeah.
people, that
Mm-hmm.
he would allow them to hear what they need to hear. Because I think a lot of people are asking God, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
And
How do you want me to show up for this
I
fight?
I want to talk about that, because when we're asking how he wants us to show up, be open to the fact that he may want you to show up in a way that is uncomfortable for you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to get very comfortable being uncomfortable. Black folks, white folks, Latinx, everybody. This next season that we're in is not going to be about one of comfort. You have to open your mind to the fact that what he asks you to do might make you uncomfortable. There are so many lanes that are involved with this process of restoration,
Yeah.
and with these resistance acts. Everybody won't be protesting, everybody won't be holding signs, but even those that can't do that, you can write petition letters, you can sign petitions, you can share, if you're comfortable, that's a part of your comfort level. You can
Yeah.
share posts, you can create databases, so that
That's a good one.
people, that allyship has a safe place to go,
Yeah.
that has correct information. So it depends on where he tells you to go. But if he says to you, the introvert, if he says to you, the person that doesn't like to speak, if he has a burning bush experience with you, like he did with Moses, and said, I need you to speak, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable
Yeah.
and do what it is. If you say, I didn't, I'm comfortable, writing letters. That's what I do. I do that. I can do that. I can finesse a letter. Okay,
Yeah.
I can finesse a letter,
But yes,
but I can finesse a letter. But he's like, no, I need you to go get some signs, and I'm gonna need you to find out where these rallies are, and I'm gonna need you to get down there to City Hall, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
need you to prepare yourself to be a. I'm just
Mhm.
fine writing letters
Yeah.
and sending them in through email.
Yeah.
So you have to be uncomfortable doing what it is that you're being asked to do in this season. And
Yeah.
don't think you have to occupy every lane. You don't
Right.
have to occupy every lane.
No,
Get
you
in
would
one
have
lane and run it.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that.
Did that make
Um,
sense?
that makes absolute sense. Everybody has a part that they can play, and I know it's definitely going to involve conversations, no matter where you are, no matter where you are,
Exactly.
no matter what your lane is. You're going to have to be able to communicate and articulate what's important and what's imperative.
And the
Um,
first person you're going to have a conversation with is yourself.
Right. Let's start
Hmm.
there. That is absolutely, we actually made a list of important conversations and places that you need to have them. And let's just start with that. Start with yourselves. Start with you, the person
Hmm.
in the mirror, the person that you live and look with and have spent your entire life with. And because it's so easy to focus on what everyone else is doing,
Hmm.
how they're feeling and how they're showing up and what this person said and what that person said, but not all fights are external.
Nope.
There may be some things within yourself that you need to address in order to actually do and show up the way you need to show up. There may be some unresolved issue regarding race, regarding Black
Hmm.
people. You know what I mean? There may be some experience that you've had that you can realize this may have tainted me because of this one experience. There
Hmm.
may be the way it's been discussed in your family, whether you're Black or white. Colorism is a thing. Bias is
Yes.
a thing. So there may be some things within you that you have to address to see, what is my philosophy based on how I've acted or how I've not acted? Have I not been able to speak up when I've seen bad things happen to people who look like me? Those are things that we need to really be diving within ourselves about.
Yeah. I think one of the first things that we have to do is be aware of, as you said, are there any biases in us?
Yeah.
Sometimes when we have a hard time living through a resistance, or when we're kind of pricking against the gold, or when we're having a hard time hearing Black Lives Matter
Mm-hmm.
speeches, or we're having a hard time with the literature that's going on, and we're just having a hard time because of the fact that people are rising up against the status quo. You have to ask yourself, why am I struggling with the fact that people are asking to be treated like human beings?
Yeah.
What lies in me? What's in my heart that is against the freedom of a people? Because this goes back to the humanity part. What about me as a person makes it difficult for me to hear them say, I just want to not be killed. I
Right.
just want, I just don't want any more hashtags. I don't want
Mhm.
any more dead bodies. What
Yeah.
part of you makes it hard to understand why people are protesting? So you
Right.
have to first have a conversation before you can have conversations with your family, with your friends, with organizations, with City Hall. Before you can have a conversation with any of those people, you have to be clear about where your heart really lies. Are you an ally?
Yeah.
Are you anti-racist? Or
Yeah.
are there still some ideologies that you hold true to that
Yeah.
have racism at the core of them?
Yeah.
Right? Do you think that you could be a Black person? Do you think that some of what has happened to Black people they deserved?
Mm. Ooh.
Okay, we're not just talking about them. Let's talk about us. Do
Yeah.
where's your heart in this? Are you
Absolutely.
having a hard time sharing the anti-racism literature because you haven't really bought into the fact that it's necessary to be an anti-racist?
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself some honest questions, and then when you get that feedback from yourself, be honest with yourself, or ask your friends, have I ever participated in anti-racist behavior?
Mm-hmm.
Do I come off as a bigot? Do I feel like someone that is pro Black people, or do I kind of tote the line in between somewhere just to
Yeah.
kind of get along in every atmosphere? So you have to ask yourself some of those tough questions first.
Yeah. I think also in doing that type of self-analysis, you can also try to figure out, when did I start caring and why? Did I just start caring when,
What caused it?
when this happened? Why didn't I care when it happened to Trayvon Martin? Was it because of
Mm-hmm.
how he looked, or maybe he was, you know what I mean? Or did I only
Right. Did I buy into the fact that, oh, he had on a hoodie and he had on this? So do I have a problem? Did he feel like a thug to me? So he might have done something. You got to
Yeah.
ask yourself.
Yeah, we have to be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves, because even in our own community, there can be biases based on our experiences. And in order
Mm-hmm.
for us to really be wholehearted in this, we have to do the self-work. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, I don't think it's just on white people. I think this is a global call for people to search their hearts and to examine. Who do you want to call? Google was like, who do you want to call?
Nobody, Google.
Nobody. Okay, talking
Nobody.
Elizabeth. To search our hearts and to see God. Okay, thank you. Just the first name, or feel free to use the screen. That's all right, Google. Google don't want us talking about this. Okay.
Listen,
Um,
Google searching her hard. Google searching is hard. Okay.
Google's like, I will search for you. What do you want? What do I need to do? But yes, and also if you, I'm not finding a match, you might want to check the contact.
Now you know what, Google.
If you don't know exactly what's in there, you can always ask God. I'm 100% proponent that if He says, call on to me, and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things that you don't know. And some of those things that we don't know could be things within us that don't line up with Him and His love for people. And He will show us those things. And it's up to us, when He does show us, for us to say, okay, God, I see you. God, I hear you, instead of, to deflect it. You know what I mean? Leaning into that uncomfortable space, because that's the only way that we can change from the inside out. Okay, so another conversation that's important for us to have when we have one with ourselves is places of worship, and our churches, places where we come together and are serving God, or those type of gatherings. Conversations like this are important to have, and you just led a conversation on that. So what are your thoughts about that?
It's important. There now has been one of the first times that I've seen churches of all types and houses of worship of all different creeds and races that are having conversations about race. Because there was a time that I know I've heard people of God say situations like, uh, we're not all called to we're not all called to activism, when in fact activism is a biblical construct.
Yeah.
We are called by God to bring freedom to those that are in captive. And that wasn't just those in jail, those that are being mistreated. Scripture calls us to bring reconciliation for those people.
Yeah.
So activism is a biblical construct, but for a long time, we let the people that were the Al Sharptons do the activism, and the Malcolm X's do the activism, and we left that out of the church. But what has happened now is you have a church full of people now whose hearts are wounded. And if you have a wounded heart, all the Bible in the world ain't gonna penetrate that wound. You
Mm.
can't just put cute word on top of wound. You got to unearth that wound. And the only thing that's going to unearth that wound is that you start having some conversations. You
Yeah.
got to start talking about it. And that's what you have noticed, that churches have been making broadcasts. They have been making statements. This is what our church believes. We stand against racism. We stand against racist policies. We stand against the institutional racism. And we are going to fight for the justice of the people. That did not happen collectively until now.
Yeah.
So it is important that your churches be having these conversations. I can't tell your pastor what to do, and I'm not one of those people that will usurp my authority and say every pastor ought to. I can't put myself in that position. What I am saying, these are some conversations you ought to be having. If you are close enough with leadership, you might want to ask them, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand? Where's your heart when it comes to this fight for the injustice of people? Where do you
Yeah.
stand? The reason I say that it is important is because we have church leaders who are not against, I'm sorry, who are against the fight. We have churches and church leaders in evangelical spaces. We're going to call spades spades. In
Yeah.
evangelical spaces, who are comfortable with the status quo because it benefits them. There are two things that I found that the evangelical largely are for, and that's about pro-life, and they're about against standing against the LGBTQ agenda. Okay, and anything else they turn a blind eye to. Well, you can't turn a blind eye to racism when you're benefiting from the racist institutionalization of it. And we're at a point now that we're calling people to the carpet. And so churches are going to need to have these conversations, because you have people in your seats whose hearts are wounded. You have people in your seats who are anti-racist, but they're being given racist uh, agendas and information. So you're going to have to contend with the fact that as a church, you're not upholding biblical constructs that say, I am to fight for the widow, I am to fight for the
Yeah.
stranger, I am to fight for the wounded. That is a biblical construct. I am only asking you to abide by the Bible. The
Mm-hmm.
Bible that you hold so true. We are asking you, we're calling you on the carpet now. You gotta stand for that. If you say you're for the justice of people, the one thing that I hear people say, there's no race, there's a human race. The Bible starts to say there's neither bond nor free, neither Greek nor Jew. Why did he call out those different nationalities if there weren't other nationalities?
Mm-hmm.
Then he said, but we are one. In order
Yeah.
for us to be one, for us to be unified, and for there to be unity, you can't have a part of the body hurting and say that we're unified. So when
Mm-hmm.
are we going to fix the broken part of the body? The broken part of the body right now is the plight of the African American that is being beaten, that is being killed in astronomical numbers, and get no justice for it. So we cannot, as a body of believers, the church at large, we cannot ignore the fact that there is a part of the body that is
Yeah.
being mistreated, and we have an obligation. We have an obligation, a responsibility to act on behalf of the part of the body that is in turmoil. We have a responsibility to do that. So
Yeah.
you got
We.
to have these conversations with your churches, with your church members. Where does the people sit singing on the choir with you? How do they feel about this? You got to ask these questions and have these conversations.
Yeah. I think, man, it is not an issue when it comes to the intersection of faith and justice. I think sometimes, and what I've seen in my professional career, is that we want to adopt matters abroad and foreign issues, but in our own backyard, there are people bleeding and dying, and God, I've heard this analogy, and at first I was mad about it, leave the 99 and go for the one, you know. But then when I really thought about it, I'm like, man, if that's not the heart of God, then I don't know what else is. That type of love, that type of ability to see, if you have so many people around you who are okay, the ability to see that one person that's not, that is love. That's
That
God's
is love.
and it's an issue of the gospel as well. What is the
It is.
gospel if but to say to the poor, you don't have to be poor anymore. To the brokenhearted, you don't have to be brokenhearted.
There's
To
a remedy for that.
you know what I'm saying? That's the gospel, the good news.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think it's also important for us to have conversations in these spaces because a place where you worship is a very vulnerable place. It's a place where I want to bring my whole self. You know what I mean? And I think, and not just, we're talking about leadership, but what about the person next to you? How are they? The people that we show up to, volunteer with, sing next to, have we asked them, how are you navigating this? They may not have a community.
Yes.
They may not have friends. You know what I mean? They may not have a safe place and space. So I think it's important for us to see people in the places that we worship with and have those conversations, whether it's one of support or one to say, this hurts and this is an area that we can change and do better.
Yes. We have to be willing to have those conversations and create safe spaces for people. We do something sometimes. We'll just call each other and have these heart checks. How's your heart? Okay. We don't say how are you, because I can say good.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I ask you how's your heart, I'm going to have to be a little bit more explanatory. That notion of leaving the 99 for the one. Sometimes what has been seen is that they equate the one to being some foreign mission in Africa. Okay. Well, right now,
I'm gonna go get my battery, but I'm gonna have you.
Okay. You want me to just keep talking? Okay. So I'll keep talking while she's working. Y'all can still hear me? Okay, because her battery must have died. All right. So that notion of leaving the 99 for the one, we sometimes use that as a way for us to do foreign missions, ignoring that there's a issue and a focus that needs to be here right on American soil. And I propose to you that whole construct of leaving the 99 to care for the one is symbolic of what is happening right now. The one that needs to be taken care of right now, the one that needs to be kind of some energy needs to be put around, some help needs to be put around, is the plight of the African American, the people of color that whose bodies are still not safe here. So as we continue this conversation, just consider that that notion of leaving the 99 for the one is not just about you putting your money on foreign soil when there are people here that need the same kind of help. The people here, I think these views are what's causing some of the divide in the church. No one wants to worship where they don't. Jade, you're onto something there. What it is you're not able to show up whole in a place where you should be able to show up whole. Because if I'm worshiping in a space where I know my leader doesn't necessarily see that though you are putting money into African soil, there are Africans right in this country that you ignore their plight. If I'm in your church and I know that I'm called to activism, but I hear you saying activism is not the cause of the church, that means a part of my being, I have to shut it down. And in places of worship where I have to be vulnerable and I have to lay myself bare before God, there is no more vulnerable space than when you're worshiping in spaces like that. And so when in spaces where I have to be willing to be vulnerable and bare, but you put up a barrier to my bareness, that is a problem. And so we have got to come clean and be clear, even in places of worship. What do you believe? And are you really an ally or not?
Yeah.
And are you an ally that's also anti-racist? Do you stand against racist tactics? That's a yes or no question. That's a yes or no question. Because racism shows up in so many different spheres, we have to be clear. There is interpersonal racism, there's institutional racism, there's structural racism. These are three different areas that racism shows up. And if we're not clear about the fact that are you against them all?
Mm-hmm.
Not just the racism that's happening people to people. What we're dealing with right now are all of those. People ask, is this just about the death of one man?
Oh
No, this is
God.
not just about the death of one black body. This uprising isn't about one black body. It's not. It's about the hundreds of thousands of dead black bodies and brown bodies whose deaths have gone unpunished. No, it's about the institutionalized, the structural, the interpersonal racism that is baked into this country's nationalism. It's not about one body. It's not. It's about the over 400 years of oppression that has gone unrepented and ignored. It's about how many times you've all lives mattered a subject that pertains to black bodies. It's not
Mm,
about one black body. And until we have these kinds of conversations, ain't gonna be no change. But let
yeah.
me tell you what's about to happen. We're not gonna stop till there is some change. But it starts with having some honest conversations with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And also goes back to something else. When we talk about how we respond to this, the Bible is clear. It went from go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Ghost. He told them where to go. It went from your closest place, Judea, Samaria, to the outermost parts. A lot of people have comfort in going to the outermost parts first because it doesn't allow it doesn't make them face the fact they have been inadequately um, looking up for the people that are right in their face.
Mm-hmm.
It's people right in your backyard that need the love of God. It's people right in your backyard that needed those resources. It's people right in your backyard that needed you to fight for them. So fighting in Africa is not the answer when you haven't fought right in your neighborhood and your church is in Pine Hills.
I
But
love
you're
that.
against those people. Search your heart, do your work, have conversations in all of your places. Every place that I show up, they're gonna hear about this. It's nobody that I've been around right now that don't know where I stand. Because I need you to know this energy
Mm-hmm.
that I'm giving this for the long haul. And if you can't take it, you're gonna have to go ahead and walk away because this is how I'm gonna show up. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to be comfortable with that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. I think, man, I think you can be kind. And that's part of one of my life philosophies is to be kind. I will be kind, but I'm not here to make you comfortable.
Girl, listen.
I think that's something that as a delicate balance that we can embrace because things that we need to talk about are not comfortable when you talk about change, much less something that's embedded with racial ideology. But you said something about your own backyard, and that leads us to the conversations that are important to have with family um, and close friends, of course, and especially our children.
Mm-hmm,
These
mm-hmm.
are these are uncomfortable conversations, and I want to check in with our audience because I see we have a few people who are parents on here. Have you guys had to have you had to have these conversations with your children? What have they been like? Um, what were your thoughts? How did you navigate it? Please let us know. We don't have children, but I have godchildren,
The
and
nephews.
I have nieces and nephews, and I look at them, and they're already dealing with issues of race. I have a nephew whom I call. Every time I see him, I just tell him how handsome he is, and his name is. I don't know. I didn't get permission to talk about this, so I won't say who it is. But I've heard him say privately that peach is better than brown. I wish I was peach. You know. So to
Oh
think that our
God.
children aren't navigating these things would be naive. Would be naive.
Yes.
Um, so have you guys had to have conversations with your children? Let us know what has that
Mm-hmm.
been like, and as an educator, would you say people should keep in mind when having conversations, or why it might be so important to have conversations with children?
Um, One obvious reason is because they're going to hear about it somewhere. They may as well hear the truth of it from you.
Yeah.
And that goes with almost anything. We need to be our children's first teachers in every aspect. Um, so if there's a narrative that your household stands on, you have to teach your child that narrative,
Mm-hmm.
both the language of that narrative, the construct of that narrative. That is something that has to be taught. The same way racism is taught to people who are racist, you have to teach your children how not to be racist, or how not to succumb to it, how not to believe the racism that is maybe thrown on them. You have to tell them who they are, so that when people tell them something else, they'll know to believe you.
Oh, I love that. I
Okay.
love that. Let's hang our hat there, because um, we have the ability to help hands-on form the identity of our children
Absolutely.
and the next generation. And I think that the conversations that we need to have with them, they are uncomfortable, because for especially Black men, I've been seeing them having these conversations, with younger Black men, letting them know how their skin color could just make them a target. But I think that's an important and uncomfortable conversation to have. And I encourage people to have that conversation, so that they are aware, so that they don't think that they are invincible, because
Right.
maybe where they grew up, or maybe, where they live, or the neighborhood, they don't feel that. But, when you step outside of your house, people aren't going to check your zip code. They're not going to check what kind of car your mom and dad drive. It's, for some people, just face value. But I think an equally important conversation with the race conversation is building our children up, building our family members up, because just because we're adults doesn't mean that we don't have insecurities regarding
Exactly.
our race, or regarding things that we've had to navigate. And building each other up in the things that are beautiful about us regarding our race. Whether you are mixed race or not, I mean, you can literally, I believe God wants us to embrace all that he's given
All
us.
parts.
If our life is a story, I don't think he wants us to, say, this chapter of my life, I don't even want to talk about that. I'm not going to embrace that. I think it's a beautiful tapestry that he gives us when he gives us life, and if Blackness, or the Black culture, or, being African American, Caribbean, whatever is a part of that, then we should build each other up to embrace that. So when we do hear hate messages, when the media comes across as this is what's beautiful, they'll be able to look and say, no, I know that I'm beautiful. I know that I'm valuable.
That's important. Yeah, she said definitely an ongoing conversation with our children, and our constantly building them up. That is absolutely necessary, Kimberly, because there are so many voices, so many things just that we come in contact with on a daily basis, from advertisement that does not favor the Black, the African American, that does not favor people of color, period. That it's important that your children not only see propaganda that the media tells them, that you have to show them, you have to build them up internally, so that how they show up is authentic, and they're not confused about what the news and the media is saying, because the news only tells you that Black men are thugs, and that Black men are bums, and they don't take care of their families. So we have people on here who we know that is not their narrative, that is not the life they live. But if your children are only succumbing to what the media says, not because they watch the media, but because the children they go to school with have parents that watch the media and have taught them that what the media said about Black people was true. So when that child comes and says that to your child, and your child hasn't been told anything other than that, they're going to believe what that child said to them. It is important that you speak life into your children. You have to, the construct that your family has, when it concerns racism, when it concerns your values, you have to teach your children the fabric and the construct of whatever it is you want them to know. You have to teach them today. You have to have those conversations. You got to have those conversations with your family. As a family, what do we believe?
Yeah.
What do we believe? Are we going to be racist? Are we going to be allies? Are we going to be anti-racist? Are we going to fight for this together? Or are some of us going to fight and some of us not going to fight? How have these conversations with your family? Because the whole family is raising children. And if we have a family of 10 and 5 people are anti-racist, and three of us are comfortable kind of towing the road in the middle somewhere, and then 2 of them are just allies, but they're not anti-racist, you do realize these are the people that are going to speak into your children.
Yeah.
You need to know what's in your family.
Natasha said, yes, it is our responsibility to speak life into our children. Absolutely. We have to build them up. We have to build up our men. We have to build up our men. We have to build up our women. We have to build up each other. I believe that's one of the strengths and the gifts of a family unit, is that you get to tell people who they are before the world gets a chance to tell them that.
Exactly. It's important.
Planting them who God says they are before the world, the media, education, all those things get access to them. So that's those are good conversations to have. And sometimes they are uncomfortable, because there are some realities that as parents, I can imagine that you might want to shield your children from. You might not want to let them know that of some of the danger and some of the bad things that could happen because you want to protect your child. But Audre Lorde has a quote, and it says, "Your silence doesn't protect you." And I think it speaks volumes to this conversation, and in general, being silent about something doesn't make you invisible, nor does it shield you from having to deal with it. So if you're going to have to speak about it, if they will have to deal with it, let's have these conversations, and let's have them early. And it's not a one-time thing. It's conditioning and programming that we have to do with ourselves and with our children. So I love that. Oh, we have an educator on here. She says, as an educator, I want to be a positive light for them, and that affirmation for them that they are beautiful, intelligent, smart, regardless of what the world tells you. I love that.
Thank you for doing that work, Deshandra. We need people like that in the classrooms. I too am an educator, teach high school math, 8th through 12th grade math, and it's important that we're in a position as educators that's called educational. You're really a leader in that classroom. You're not just a teacher. You are a leader. You are someone that speaks to them as much as their parents should be. So it's important that we have people that are able to think good thoughts about children in those classroom spaces, so that what they hear at home is matched by what they hear in this classroom. And let's just say what they hear at home is not the most positive thing. What we do in the classroom can undo some of the melee that these kids have to go home to. Yes, so it's important that we in positions, that we posture for that. So thank you for your service in education, fellow teacher Deshandra Ellis.
Yes, Deshandra, shout out to you. Another brave conversation that we should be having and will have to have is conversations in our workspaces and areas of leadership. Woo! Did we just take a breath? Okay. So I want to know from the audience, the studio audience, I want to know, have you guys had to have conversations with leadership, with your boss, with your managers? Are you on leadership teams? Have you had to have conversations with other leaders about policies or practices that you have, or even just about the experience of people? What's the temperature been like for that? I want to know. Please let us know. Have you been wanting? Maybe you're like, I want to say something, but I just haven't. Has that been the case? Let us know what that's like and been like for your workspaces.
And while we're waiting for them to chime in about their experiences, I want to talk about an experience that I had in my current workspace. So it's a 50-year-old institution, 50-year-old Southern Baptist evangelical ministry that has a church school, and the church is 50 years old. The school may be as old, and for as long I've worked there for probably about the 8th year or something, with a 3-year break in between. And the student population, it is predominantly when I said Southern Baptist evangelical, I think you understood what the population of the church was.
Yeah.
Okay. But the population of the school is about 98% African American or people of color. Okay. And I don't have a problem with that. Now, I do believe that in order for you to educate children, you have to actually understand them. You have to understand the nuances of the children that are going to be in your classrooms. Or something that I said on Thursday will happen. Our nuances will become a nuisance to you. Okay. Because how we show up as African Americans is different from how other cultures show up. How we show up as Caribbean Americans is different from how other cultures show up.
Yeah.
We got a little funk to us, a little feist, not all of us, but we don't come in docile. We're not even raised like that as girls. We kind of, so let's say a young woman comes in and they got a little chip on their shoulder that day. It's not because they're mad at you. Something happened at home. Something happened in the car. Something irritated them. But if we don't know the nuances of our children, then we'll see everything they do as a nuisance. So this particular place that I've worked at for a while, and all of their years, every year when February comes around, every single year, no mention of Black History Month. Now, this is a national holiday.
You're kidding
in
me.
all the years they have been in operation, In all the years, and I said 50, in all the years of operation, they have never once acknowledged Black History Month. Not a poster, not an announcement, not a not a voucher to go to this or to that, um, not a nothing.
Wow.
And the kids started asking me as one of their only, that at one time I was the only African American teacher in all of middle school. And at one time, the only African American teacher in all of high school. And they would get in my class and they would ask, can we do something for Black History Month? Can we
Mm.
do something for Black History Month? And I would have to skirt over it because I knew the ideologies of my workplace. I knew. I had an idea. One year, this was after the death of my sister and my brother. I There's something different happened to me when I came back to work. When I re-entered the workspace after that trauma, I the status quo no longer mattered to me.
Mm.
So what they got was a rawer version of Elizabeth, the teacher. And when the students asked that year, I did not tell them no.
Mm.
I created a Black history curriculum for my classroom. And I didn't ask permission.
Mm.
I stopped caring whether or not there would be backlash against me. I knew what was going to come against me. But for the integrity of those students and for students to be in the school system and not have anything represent them on a national holiday that is for them, it was unfair. And so that year, I created a curriculum. I had them looking up mathematicians, looking up scientists, looking up in the culture and in arts. And the students they blew it out of the park.
Wow.
Even the students that were white, the students that were Hispanic, everybody was excited. They had to do presentations, they had to do
Right.
diagrams, they had to go research, they had to do everything, they had to dress up, they had to do everything. And at the end of it, what came to me, like the after I sent out the information to the parents, and I'm gonna hurry up with this. The principal comes to me, who was the pastor. He came and said, "Yeah, I've gotten some complaints from the parents about this because you're a math teacher and you're teaching history. You're teaching historical matter instead of math." I said, "Well, if the textbooks were teaching it, I wouldn't have to."
Mm.
That's the level of I didn't care that was on me.
Mm.
I said, "Well, if the textbooks were teaching it, I wouldn't have to." Because when I have students in my classroom telling me that their origin was as slaves, I have a problem with that. That you don't that's all your textbooks show. That the first time you were entered, that you were introduced in your textbook as an indentured servant or as an enslaved African, because we were never slaves, we were enslaved, and there's a
Mhm.
difference. So
Mhm.
I literally had to push against the bricks on that year. And what happened was it said, well, I had to restructure just a little bit just to be compliant, but we finished it out. That he said, well, next year we'll have some talks about it. We'll try to add it to the curriculum for the entire school. Well, next year came and they never added it. The next year came, they never added it. The next year came, they never added it. So these are conversations you have to have in your workplace, especially when you represent the minority in your workplace, and there are other people in your workplace depending on you. These are
Mhm.
conversations that you're going to have. And it can be very uncomfortable,
It
very
is.
uncomfortable,
I want to
but very
highlight
necessary.
what some people have said from different industries. I think this is so interesting. Neil said, workplace conversations are being forced. My CEOs and corporate bodies are posting statements, and our airline actually formed a division to allow a diverse group of crew members, especially African American, to come together to have this conversation. The company wants to know how to best we can be effective moving forward to root out racism in the corporate and social world. That's good.
That's awesome. That means, Neil, you're working in a workplace where somebody is really thinking about the holistic person. You're working with someone who is in the top tier of leadership that may be an ally. So you're working in a workplace where some people are doing these PR stunts where they're saying we are for the common good, but you're not changing the higher up. The structure of your CEOs is still
Mhm.
lily white. There are no people of color. There's no
Yeah.
diversity in your top tier of leadership. There's no diversity on your board members. Then you can give me these PR speeches all day long. But until you change the representation in your company, you're not for us. So I'm glad they're having those conversations. It sounds like, Neil, you're probably working in a workplace where they are really understanding that the culture has to shift. It has to
Yeah.
shift.
Kimberly says, I haven't had to since my company was already on it, and her company has been
Good.
very active. But my husband, on the other side, has been that
Mm,
voice this week in his company. He made them aware, acknowledge, and hopefully will continue to take actions they take. I love that. And I want to dive into that. Natasha, my cousin, says, as a social studies educator to high school students, it is important to present history to them accurately. I organized a walk yesterday calling for the community to speak up, including my very silent coworkers. That's brave. That is very brave, Natasha.
Yeah. Very brave to call people on the carpet is very brave. And I've been telling people, your silent solidarity is not what we need right now. If you're for us, we need to know that. And that doesn't mean you're championing all across the internet if you know you're not comfortable with that, or you're gonna do a disrespect to it, or you're just gonna, don't do that. But if you have some solidarity in this movement, your silence is disrespectful.
Yeah, I think that the workplace is important because typically people who are in power are non-Black, and
Yep.
they only know their experiences, and people are engineered to think about what's best for them. So, and they've been doing that their entire lives. So it's important for us to realize that, like I said before, not every protest is in the street. And when it comes to these boardroom meetings, how they make decisions, who they're hiring, if you have a place in that, it is important to use your voice. And I want to let you know that your voice matters. One conversation, one uncomfortable conversation can change what the staff looks like, can change what the board looks like, can change who's in leadership, can change policy. Yep. And you can fight for people who would have never had the ability to have that conversation in the first place. So those are brave and important conversations to have. And that leads us to, wherever it is that you are. I love that, Neil is over there in the, what is it? The pilot, what is the pilot industry called?
Aviation.
Aviation. Like auto air. That's not it.
Auto air.
The aviation industry, and Natasha's in education. I think one thing that I love about this movement is that because we have technology, it's helping us to communicate what's important. And if you can cut out the clutter, great. One message I love that's circulating is that some people are going to fight in the boardroom. Some people are going to fight in policy. Some people are going to fight in education. Some people are going to be fighting in the arts and entertainment. Some people are going to be fighting in sports and media. Some people are going to be fighting in the religious sector. Some people will be fighting when it comes to housing, banking, like wherever your land is. And the idea of land, I heard about it from Bishop Benjabert, who is to be with the Lord. God, bless his family. But he wrote a book called Land, and it basically helped you to map out what areas not only were you called to, but your family, where you can look back and see, in my family, what are the things that naturally, the gifts that God gave us, what areas can we dominate in? And I was able to map out that my land is entertainment, my land is ministry, and it's also, communication, right? These are my lands. And so in these areas, I'm asking God, how do you want me to move forward? How do you want me to make a difference, right? Most of my sisters are nurses, and I've had conversations with them, and I didn't know how much racism and how Black people were being treated was happening in the healthcare when they come in, how some people were given medication for pain and some people weren't, how some people were treated as a criminal when they weren't, just because of how they look and the color of their skin. So whatever your land is, it might be content, it might be social media, it might be, makeup and hair, anything. Wherever your land is, it's important to see and think about what important conversations might I have to have in my industry. Kim says, occupy your lane. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Woo, well, how are you guys feeling? Did you have any questions?
Yeah.
We're gonna
ask away.
Yeah. I know we wanted to answer Casey's question, and there are just a couple things that we wanted to, I think we've done a good job of expressing why the conversations are important, because when you have an opportunity to use your voice, not only is it your God-given right, but you could be speaking up for people who would never have the opportunity.
Yeah.
You could be fighting for people who are going to benefit from your boldness when you have when you have that conversation, and it could be one-on-one. It might not be in a pulpit. It might not be at the rally. It could be one-on-one in a room with somebody, at an audition table, at the, at the bank. It could be one-on-one, but these important conversations can have so much impact. Another reason why you want to have these conversations and, embrace boldness with these conversations is that it's a way for you to identify and create safe spaces. Today, Elizabeth and I was able to create a safe space with you guys. And you can create that safe space in your home, at your job, at your church, among friends. We need to have safe spaces that we can process this together. What do you think about that?
It's very important that we do that, because we're in such tumultuous times, and because these are touchy subjects, and because the resistance is really ripping away the facade of togetherness that we have kind of stood under for so long. People are going to be in a very raw place, especially those who are owning the fact that they have benefited from the privilege of Black people being dominated over. Some of them are really coming to terms with the fact that we've been doing this wrong. And so not only do we need to create safe spaces for us to have these conversations with people, but we need to create safe spaces for other people who don't look like us to have these conversations with us. So it's just important that we not lose our humanity in all of this, right? We're fighting against a culture that has not been humane. We can't become inhumane in order to get things done. So we create safe spaces, because that's the only way that conversations happen. Conversation has to be two-way. If I'm the only one talking, that's not a conversation. That's a monologue. So if we want people to be able to talk back to us, the space has to be clear enough, without judgment, with freedom for people to speak, or you're not going to allow people to be heard. And if people aren't heard, we know what happens. That's what's happening right now. People have been speaking and no one has been listening, and there is an uprising. So we have to create these safe spaces. Once we created it for ourselves, we have to create those safe spaces and invite other people to be able to communicate with us. Communication is the only thing that breaks down those barriers. Those hard barriers come down with communication. And that's why today we're having these difficult conversations, these hard conversations.
I love that. And I think there's a vulnerability that's required.
And a humility as well.
And a humility on both parts, to listen and to say. And sometimes when you've been hurt, you feel like I shouldn't have to explain. I shouldn't have to tell you. You need to fix it. And I found that in my marriage, that doesn't always work, because I need to tell my husband what he can do to fix it. What are his steps to restoration? He has to tell me what I need to do in order to make it right. So these conversations are important this week. And I can guarantee you, a year from now, we may still be having to have layers and levels of conversations that could be uncomfortable. But I want to encourage everybody to stand in your boldness and know that you're brave, and it doesn't make you weak in order to say that hurt me. It doesn't make you weak in order to say that is wrong. It doesn't make you weak in order to say this can't happen again. You know what I mean? Nor does it make you aggressive. You know what I mean? It's the ability to be honest that's going to help us to cause change. If we don't identify what we need to change, we can't change it. And if we can't articulate and communicate that, it won't be understood. So we wanted to leave you guys with just a couple of tips before we jump into questions on how to have these conversations, whether it's with your job, with your family, with yourself. We want to leave you with some takeaways, practical things that you can do to embrace being brave in communication. So first thing is, you want to be clear, concise, and compassionate. You want to be clear, concise, and compassionate. I will tell you this, having private conversations with friends has enabled me to, in a way, take away some of the emotion that I feel and clearly communicate to people who needed to hear the truth. I had to be clear, and I had to be concise, and I had to, because then some people will just they will take just how you're saying it as opposed to what you're saying, or they'll look for something, to harp on that. When if you could be clear and concise, they can't argue with that. And to come from a place of love and compassion, I think will do us much more good than than anything else.
And I would venture to say that you can be clear and compassionate, but you can be clear and concise, but if it is absent of compassion, they will not hear you. So it's a combination of those things that have to be come into play. Be clear, be exact about what your intention is, about what it is where you stand on an issue. Be very clear, be very concise, meaning get right to it. This is our focus, this is our topic, so that we're not all over here talking
we're
about
not
white lives.
we're
Right
not
here.
talking about this. We're not talking. This
Listen,
is what
we're right here. Be
I love
clear,
that.
be concise. But while you're being clear and concise, also be compassionate. It just never hurts. A little bit of sugar never hurt nothing. Everybody like a little sugar. So be clear, be concise, but just be compassionate, because you're dealing with people. This has been going on for so long. It's entrenched in our being. It's entrenched in our behavior. So you have to be compassionate, because some people are literally trying to undo things they have been taught since they were children, and they 40 and 50 and 60 and 20. They have been doing this for so long, and that one conversation without compassion will not get the layers of their disregard back. So clear, concise, compassion. It takes all of that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Another tip is be willing to agree. Be willing, to not agree. It's not your job to change someone's belief, and we tapped into that earlier. That's God's job to really change someone's hearts, and it's on to embrace empathy. But you don't have to campaign and try to convince someone on why this is important. So if someone doesn't agree with you, and that's what we were talking about earlier, you got to know your boundaries. You got to know, when is this hurting me more than it's helping. Be willing to not agree.
And we have to remember that the conversations aren't to transform their minds or their thinking. Well, ultimately you would like that, but our job really is to inform, right? And if you come with it from that, I'm giving you information that might not change your mind, but I'll still give you the information. So yeah, be willing to not agree with everybody about what you say, but you still have to stand your ground and know why you believe what you believe.
Yes, Jade had a comment, and we'll come back to it.
Jade, and what was the other young lady, the artist?
Casey.
We're going to come back to both of those. So stay here, Jade. I saw you come back in. I saw you say that you had stepped away. So I'm glad you came back.
Yay. Yes, willing to not agree. You got to, another tip is be willing to learn and willing to listen.
Yes.
Be willing to learn and willing to listen.
Conversation isn't one way. You have to be able to give it and take it.
Yeah, dialogue. We want to be heard, but we need to hear people. And this is the thing. I love being a listener, because when you listen to people, they will tell you where their heart is. No matter what, they will reveal what is truly in their heart. And
out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Just listen.
And it will help you to realize, how do I need to move forward with this person? Maybe what boundaries do I need to set up? Or God, are you giving me the boldness to just call what it is out that I see right now? But when you listen, you will learn so much. But even as Black people, we have to still be willing to listen and learn from each other and from people who are not Black. Because I think there's just a lot of learning that needs to be done across the board. We need to listen to our children. How are they experiencing this? What do they need from us as parents? We need to really have an open heart and open our ears. Yes, Natasha says, thank you, ladies, for using this platform to have difficult yet important discussions. Yeah, I'm so thankful to be able to do this, because there was a point in my week this last week where I just could not stop crying, because I was so tired. I was so tired. And I knew that if I was tired, that I was not the only one feeling the burden of all this. But I also knew that it wasn't going to end. Like there wouldn't come a day when everybody on earth would get it, or everything that I'm connected to would just bippity boppity boom be fixed, and that I would not have to articulate and advocate and speak up for someone else. So I was like, God, give me the strength. And he told me that he would restore my soul. And my soul is my mind, my intellect, my emotions, and my imagination. And I think this is what came out of this, is God restoring me, replenishing me, and saying, okay, how do we continue? How can we continue to have these conversations? And God, how do you want us to communicate to people? How can we communicate to people so that they can get it and they can run with it? How can we write that vision so they can get it and run with it? Yes. So another tip is, and you brought this up, Elizabeth, and I thought it was so impactful. Learn the language of the movement so that you can effectively communicate.
Yeah, everything that we do has a particular language. As a math teacher, there's a certain language to math. If I say sum, that means addition. If I say product, that means multiplication. If I say quotient, that means division. If I say difference, that means subtraction. Everything has a language. And what I teach my students in the class is to speak the language. I talk to them in math language. I expect them to respond to me in math language so that when I'm communicating with them in math language, they know what I'm saying. We have to learn the language of resistance. We have to learn the language of protest. We have to learn the language of the movement that we are in so that when you're communicating with people, you're communicating accurately. So you're not calling something one thing that it is not.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. Learn the language of resistance and teach your children and your spheres of influence the language of resistance. So not calling something racism that's not racism, or there is different types of racism. They're not thinking structural racism is interpersonal racism. So it's important that we learn the language so you can articulate intelligently, right?
Yeah.
Because people, they hear you, but if they leave without understanding, then you haven't communicated well. Real teaching means when people leave there, they have the tools to do something with what I've given them. That means with my speech, I have given you a blueprint and I've given you tools so that you have enough information about how to use the tools and how to use the blueprint to go and build a house. I don't build a house for you. I provide the blueprint. I provide the tools. You go build the house. But if your language is fractured, they can't build a house because they don't even know what you said.
That's so good. That is so good. That is so good, especially with something like this that is so embedded and it has so many emotions. Sometimes our emotions can cloud what we're trying to say and it doesn't come across. And I think that the more we learn how to articulate what is happening, we won't be fighting bias when we need to be fighting racism. We can be
that's language. That's language.
Yeah. We can address colorism when we need to and not call that racism. I think there are aspects to it, and the more we can define that and understand it within ourselves, the more conversations that we can have and be confident, so that people can understand. Because if you go and tell somebody you're racist and you need to fix it, they're not going to know how, and they're not going to understand. Some people honestly still don't understand what racism is. So we can start there. But one thing that we can do is educate ourselves, arm ourselves with the language so that we can be great communicators. I love that. Ooh, Deshandra said powerful. Yes, learn the language.
Thank you, dear.
Learn the language. Okay. And man, this has been great. I added this morning because I wanted to just empower everybody, because there's a faulty narrative that exists within us sometimes based on what our experiences have been and based on how our voice may have been suppressed in different arenas, that our voice doesn't matter.
Right.
That we really can't impact or cause change because it's been going like this for so long, or they never cared before. Why would they care now? And if you've ever heard that voice come up, if you've thought that I want to say something, or I'm not even, or why bother? I just want you to know that that's not what God wants you to feel and think. Your voice matters. What you have to say and what your experience is, it matters. And I strongly believe God's not asking everybody to get a megaphone and stand out on the street, nor is he asking everybody to go to sit down with government and write policy. But he may be asking us in different ways to change the change he's trying to bring on this earth.
Right.
I believe it starts with our heart. But one thing I want us to walk away knowing is that our voice matters. And no matter what land we are in, no matter where our hands need to be, that we can work in that area to cause change and to make things better for the people that are going to come after us. So your voice matters. You can cause change, and you can impact things to change for the better.
I would also like to connect with that while you're looking at those comments. I would admonish you to teach your children to value their voice. Some of us grew up in generations where they told us to be seen but not heard, where
Ooh, I think that's
we weren't allowed to have conversation. We weren't allowed to dialogue with adults about anything.
mhm.
We simply listened to them and we did whatever they said. And that raised a generation of people who did not know how to accurately voice their concerns, whether it be physical, emotional, psychological, sexual. They
Yeah.
couldn't voice their concerns and or their needs.
Hmm.
And something that I do with my students and even with my nephews, if I'm talking to them and they talk to me with their head, I say, no, don't talk to me with your head. Use your voice because your voice matters. I
I
wanted to hear your
love that.
voice.
I
So
love
you need to encourage them to get accustomed to hearing themselves speak and being confident
that.
in the fact that they have something to say
Yeah.
and that they have the wherewithal to articulate accurately. And when their speech is skewed, it's your job as a parent and a family member, as a caretaker, to help them fix the speech, but never shut down their language. Fix the speech, but don't shut down their voice, because if you shut it down as a child, they'll grow up having to figure out how to find their voice.
Ooh,
And you
ooh.
don't want that. Imagine if our children at 5 years old already knew what the sound of the strength that was in the sound of their voice. You wouldn't have teenagers unafraid to tell you that somebody's abusing them,
Yeah.
because they already know that their voice matters. They already
Yes.
know that they have the ability to clearly communicate with you. And when they see injustice, they will not be afraid to speak
Speak
up.
up.
The reason that our children are in the middle of some injustice, they see unjust things going on around them. But the reason they don't speak is because adults have told them that their voice doesn't matter, that their voice has to be shh, 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 just wait, shh, shh,
Mm-mm.
shh, be seen and not heard. We have
Mm-mm.
got to raise a generation of children who are righteously rebels. They are righteous rebels. They are Messiah's misfits. They go against
Heavy.
the grain. They're the fish that goes in the other direction than the other people. We've got to raise up a generation of young people who know their voice absolutely matters and that their voice is necessary.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
not going to be here forever. And we need young people who can speak the language of resistance, so that while this resistance that we're doing now, when they see the fragments of the foolishness trying to reform, they can undo it quickly, because we have taught them the language of resistance. We've
Absolutely.
taught them the language of the things that have gotten us here. We've taught them what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like. And then we've given them the ability to articulate, no, we're not going to do it that way because that is oppression. They know
Mm.
the difference. You have to arm your children with the language, but you
Yeah.
also have to arm them with the voice. You have to give them permission to speak to you.
Exercise and use their voice and hear them. I love that.
Very good.
I love that. I love that.
Deshandra, you teach kindergarten?
She said, "Yes, I teach kindergarten, so I get them at the
Yeah,
from those early ages." I love that. I
that's
love
very
that.
good.
I love
We
that.
need that.
And we've been doing that in subtle ways, and I see my friends doing that with their kids. We had um, one of our kids. We said promised him something. Yeah, we're gonna do this, you know. And then he got so excited, and he came back, and we forgot about it. He came back to us. He said, "You told me you were gonna do this. Why aren't we doing it?" And he could identify that what you're saying and what you're doing isn't lining up, you know.
Correct.
And instead of being like, go sit down somewhere, we were like, "You're absolutely right. You guys, let's do it." You know what I mean? We showed him the integrity of our word and that he could cause change. You know, being seen and not heard
You
is
know,
probably one of the worst. It's probably
so
one of my
damaging.
it'll
It's
probably
so
be my next book,
damaging.
because it took me until I was in my 30s to find my voice. Till I was in my 30s to find my voice, to my 30s to speak
My
up,
God.
to fight for myself, and now I'm trying to fight for others. But imagine if when I was a teenager, or you know, when I was in college and in those younger years, that I had that righteous conscience as well as that ability to stand up for what I believe in, to stand up for myself. Man, and if we can instill that in our next generation, we're going to be in good
We
hands.
have to. We have to.
Are you guys putting gifs? I can't.
Oh, I want to see. I can't wait to come back so I can look at the live and see all these comments. And I will come back at the end and really talk with some of y'all. It's difficult to do. And then
Yeah,
righteous rebels. That's right. I am
you
a
got it,
righteous rebel. I
Dorothy.
am
I'm a
Messiah's
righteous rebel.
misfit. I am Messiah's misfit. That's
I
right.
love it. I love this so much, you guys. My heart is just overflowing. I'm so
I
happy.
have enjoyed this.
I am so happy, and I want to answer some of the questions that we had. Um, I want to answer some of the questions that we had, and just Casey had a question earlier. Oh, here is it.
Yeah,
Casey,
let me try to
if you're
find
still
it.
here, I don't know if
Let
I
us
can.
know if you're still here, Casey. Raise a hand or something.
I believe her question was, where does how can she make an impact, being that she's not Black, but she wants to create, like she's inspired and wants to create content and write songs right now. Um,
Yeah, it has something to do with that.
mm-hmm. Casey, I am your friend, and I know you, and what I've known of you has just been such a tender and passionate heart. And I would say, just start with your heart. Start with your heart. Meghan Markle said something that stuck with me, and she was like, I think I even wrote it
It's
down.
there. Mm-hmm.
She said, the only wrong thing to say is nothing. The only wrong thing to say is nothing. And sometimes we could be so concerned about saying things absolutely right that we don't speak up at all. And I guarantee you, the heart is a language, and love is a language that everybody can understand. And if you
Everybody.
create something, Casey, from a place of love and a place to bring unity and to speak up for voices who are disenfranchised and don't have the opportunity, that's you spending your privilege. That's
That
you.
is.
That is you using your privilege, because you gain nothing from it other than to give a voice to the voiceless and to use your creativity that God gave you to bring awareness and unity in regards to an issue. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, definitely start with what it is that burdens your heart the most. What aspect of this movement burdens your heart the most? Do that. If you're most compassionate about the deaths of Black and brown bodies, start there. If you're most compassionate about the destruction of institutionalized racism, start there. If you're more, if what burdens you most is the judicial system, start there. So it is important to do, as Felicia said, start with what burdens you. Start with what's burdening your heart there. I promise you, the burden that's there, God put it there. So start with what burdens you most, because only good and only what is wholesome and loving and full and thorough will be able to come from that place. So start with what's burdening you the most.
I love that. I love that. And Casey, I mean, you're just writing from your experience, what
Oh,
you see, and from, your place of empathy. So the people who love you and support you will appreciate that more than anything. You know.
mhm.
Um, yeah, this is so good. Paxton,
Yeah,
amazing performer in this area, said the love in this space is palpable. Thank you for sharing your hearts. That means so much to
that
us.
means tons. Yes.
Oh,
Thank you for
Casey's
listening and
here.
for joining us. Hey,
Casey, we love you. Create, 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 create. And Elizabeth said early on the call that some of the best songs and some of our best work is going to come out of this time. And I
yeah.
believe it. So create.
Resistance has a sound. There are certain songs that are connected to the civil rights movement, because those songs were birthed in the middle of the civil rights movement,
Yes.
and they're the things that pushed. It was the sound that pushed the actual movement, and this movement may be waiting on your sound, Casey. So whatever it is that is on your heart to write, and the poets on here, the things that are on your heart to produce, the
Yeah.
writers on here that are on your heart, the things you need to get published, the things you need to get out, those plays you need to write, whatever it is that is on your heart, the resistance calls for it to be produced, because there's a certain sound that must push the resistance.
Yes.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. Jade had a comment. Oh, but I don't think I'll see all of it on here.
I can read it from my
Facebook.
Facebook page.
Okay,
Mhm.
please do. Go ahead.
Okay, it says, I stepped away for a second, and you all already passed this point. Sorry. I have to share this point. I will say, I will say of the women who said it's not their job to give white people the info, but they should look it up. I took it as those people have been sharing the information and talking about it, and were tired of people asking them to give them something that had been and still is readily available on their page and everywhere else at this point. So I understand what she's saying there. I
Yeah.
personally got annoyed by a young white man I worked with asking people to send him resources and material. Mind you, it was the day after Blackout Tuesday. So in
Mm.
my mind, I'm like, you missed the entire purpose of yesterday and you're looking really lazy. Because if you were part of Blackout Tuesday, there was so much information that was put out.
Yeah.
And to Jade's point, a lot of what is happening sometimes is they're asking you for the information so they can um, gather all of that information and then they redistribute it as if it was their own idea sometimes. So that's maybe part of it, but that's part of what I'm thinking. So then she continues saying, so in my mind, I'm like, you missed the entire purpose of yesterday and you're looking really lazy. You're on social media right now. You're looking back. You're following Black fellow artists that you could have checked their page. So instead of asking me for the resource, check my page to see if I've already presented it. Is what is her
Yeah.
point there. So in other words, do some of the work, right? It's our
Yeah.
job to give the information, which we talked about. So Jade, we did say some of what you're saying, but it's totally okay.
Yeah. That's cool.
Then it says here, but in the end, I did at least point him in the right direction to get the information. Why? Because we talked about being compassionate.
Yeah.
She could have gone off, but instead she pointed him in the right direction. So he has no excuses. I say in the instances where you're tired of speaking, give them over to someone else who doesn't mind speaking. That is very mature and that is very wise because just because you are tired doesn't mean they don't need the information. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean they shouldn't get at least steer them in the right direction. If you aren't in the space to do it, definitely hand them off to someone that can do it. So that's wise. That's
Yeah.
why there are people, many people in the battle. When one is tired, the other can continue to fight until you are revived, and
Yes.
then they can rest. And that is
Yes.
a good place. That
I
is
love that.
good.
I love that.
That
I
is good.
love
Thank
that.
you for sharing that, Jade.
Thanks for sharing that, Jade. And that's why I love that it's all hands on deck. I don't think we should separate people in this. Everybody should be doing their part or can do their part. And that way, when those who need to hand off the baton to someone else, they can. They can. This is going to be a marathon. It's not a sprint.
It is.
Casey's following up with us and just saying, you have been such an inspiration and so informative. All who have commented have been so enlightening for me. Thank you for being strong and inspirational for someone whose voice has been quiet for
Way too long, Casey. Way too long.
Casey. And you're not the only one. You're not the
You're
only one,
not.
Casey. I think it's an awakening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you share that. I love that you share. She said, literally working on a song as I've been watching this. I can't wait to hear it.
Hey, I know.
I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear it.
I love that.
I can't wait to hear it. Well, okay. So I have said all that I want to say today, and this conversation has been so impactful and so enlightening. And I think one thing I want to leave people with is don't leave God out of this conversation. And with all the conversations that you're having, make sure that you're having conversations with God because He knows, one, how much you can handle and bear. He knows where you need to put your hands and get to work. He knows where the safe spaces are for you to unpack and replenish. And He knows what's ahead. He knows what's ahead.
He does.
And He knows what you need, and He knows everything. And so don't leave Him out of this conversation. So in all the conversations we're having, don't forget to be vulnerable and honest with God because He wants to hear from you. No matter where you stand in all this, whether you need Him to show you what's in your heart or whether you need Him to just give you the strength to keep fighting another day or to show up at your job and be joyful when you're in so much pain, no matter what you need. Don't disconnect yourself from God because He's with us in this.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I would love for us to pray, Liz. I think I would love for you to pray if you can just cover us all and extend what's on your heart as we end out. But if you have any questions, I didn't see. Oh, Jake chimed back in. I love you, ladies, and this has been an amazing.
We love you too.
We love
and
you.
I will come back in. I will come back in and answer questions as I get off of the broadcast. One thing that I want us to consider as all of us are gaining our courage to speak and our courage, you're not in this alone. This time last year, I wouldn't have done what I'm doing right now with the intentionally protesting. I would have been afraid because of some spaces that I walk in, knowing that they're in disagreement with it. I would have been afraid to do that, but something about this was different. So that bravery is not just changing. It's not just changing the culture and the climate that we're putting our energy into. It's changing us.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of times, I saw a quote here that says, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." So
Mm.
I want you to consider how um, being intentional about these acts of resistance, being intentional about caring for the broken and the destitute and the harmed, being intentional about caring for those that are without help, how that doesn't just change the culture and the climate, but it changes you.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, the change that we really need is for each individual to be changed. That's an individual thing. So I
Yeah.
want to pray that God would just continue to change us. He would continue to work in our hearts and just continue to awaken us to the love that He has for us, so that
Yeah.
we can see everyone as what I call, in the word is imago Dei, that we can see everyone as image bearers.
Mm.
While we are Black and white and Latinx and Hispanic and Native American and every other culture, we are all imago Dei. So even when your culture and your character stand in opposition to me because you are imago Dei, I have to have your best interest in heart, even when you don't have mine in heart. So it all begins within. And so I want to pray
Yeah.
quickly. So, Father, just thank you for this day, for this moment, for this opportunity, for this time. Thank you for Felicia's heart, for this platform, for the people that gave their open heart and open ear to what was being said on today. Thank you, Father, for the safe spaces that you have created on the inside of us, that you gave us an opportunity to open up to those that will listen. I pray, God, that this conversation will be volumes, not for our sake, but so that your love can be seen across this nation, across this land. I pray, God, that you would touch the hearts of those who are having a real tough time
Mm-hmm.
navigating these spaces, navigating through the murky waters of indecision and these murky waters of racism and bigotry and hatred and lovelessness and lawlessness, that are having a tough time figuring out where their place is in this resistance, in this battle. I pray, God, that you would give them clarity, you would give them vision, you would give them strength and courage also to walk strong and mighty. Use us, Father God. Continue to use us as vessels to bring about the change that you want to see in this world. Burden our hearts and break our hearts with the things
Mm.
that break yours. Those that are having a hard time because they benefited from racism, I pray, Father, that you would give them the compassion that is already on the inside of them. They are
Yeah.
made in your image and in your likeness. They are imago Dei. They are your image bearers, and therefore they already know how to have compassion. But I pray that, God, you would awaken the compassion on the inside of us all, so that we could be compassionate one for another, brother to sister. That is how the world will know that we belong to you, because we have love for our
Mm.
brothers and our sisters. So, God, I pray that you would just continue to do a work even within this posture of unrest that we sit in the middle of, that you would do a work on the inside of our hearts and let the unrest turn to peace. And I praise you, Father God, that those that are angry, that you would turn that anger into activism and allow them to put their foot in this and get active in the undoing of the systems of
Yeah.
racism that have plagued this country since its
Yeah.
inception. So I thank you, Father, that you are raising up warriors who are not afraid, and you are giving voice to the voiceless. You're giving strength to the powerless. And I just give you praise, God, that something good is coming after this. There should be a performance of things that you have spoken. And I give you praise, God, that we're going to see the benefit of all of this unrest, that there shall be peace after this. So give us the ability, Father God, to be peaceable one with ourselves, so that what comes out of us is peace, even when it looks like resistance. I give you praise, Father God, for all that has been said and all that has been done. I pray for the hearts of those that have been wounded. I pray for the systems that need to be undone, that what happens after the result of it would be calm and would be the kind of country, the kind of nation, the kind of people that you called us to be. Help us to possess our land. Help us to know where it is that we've been called to put our foot, so that we can walk worthy of the spaces that you called us to occupy. I thank you, Father God, for all that is coming, for all of the music and the art and the culture that's being lifted, even in this space of resistance. I thank you, Father God, for what you're doing in your people, for those that have listened with whole and full hearts. thank you, Father, that if there be any wounds that were there, that this conversation has healed it. I thank you, Father, that if there are any other wounded people that are out there, that conversation will heal that even more. And I just thank you that you're giving us the ability to have these difficult conversations in this difficult time. We can do it. We can do it with your help. And we thank you for it now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Amen. Woo! Amazing. 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 Elizabeth, you are a gift to the world, to the body of
And
Christ,
you.
to all artists. Please, I shared her information in the beginning, but if you can follow her, connect with her, support everything that she's doing. As you can see, you've heard her heart today, and you can trust that, you know, that she's just amazing. Dorothy said, amen. Thank you so much for this safe, brave space. The convos are gold. Love you, queens. We love you, Dorothy.
We
Love
love
you.
you too, Miss Dorothy.
We got a lot of amens happening.
Amen.
Jade, I want to thank you for showing up in our space,
Yeah.
the theater space,
Yeah.
the theater world. I see you, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a leader. I don't know if you see yourself as one, but you are a leader in our space.
I see it.
And I see it, and I want to say thank you, and I support you. All right, y'all. Well, we're gonna go so people can enjoy the rest of their day. But listen, share this. I'm telling you guys, share this conversation. Tag somebody in it because it blessed me, and I know it's going to be a blessing to so many people. And we just want to continue to support people and help them to have these brave conversations. So we love you guys. That's it.
I love you, Felicia.
I love you,
sister friend. I love you, sister friend.
I love you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
All right. Have a great day, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.